on cultural heterogeneity in language, linguistics, and literature, organized by B.S. Abdur Rahman Crescent Institute of Science and Technology and University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, Scotland, supported by Edvoy Educational Services Limited. Today, in our midst, we have Dr. Kaarthiyainy Supramaniam, who will be delivering a lecture on socio-linguistic narratives in multicultural society. Before we begin, I would like to introduce our speaker. Associate Professor Dr. Kaarthiyainy Supramaniam, or Dr. Kaarthi, as she is referred to by her friends and colleagues, is an academician and researcher who is currently with Faculty of Education, Universiti Teknologi, Malaysia. Her academic experience is in the field of teaching English as a second language, teacher training, postgraduate supervision, and examination. She also serves as the chief editor of Asian Journal of University Education, which is currently a Q2 Scopus Index journal. She is also a member of the Malaysian Examination Council. Her academic journey began with a teaching certificate in TESOL for primary education from Tunku Bainan Teacher Training College, Malaysia, followed by her master's and bachelor's degree in applied linguistics from Universiti Putra, Malaysia. She received her doctorate in education in TESOL from University of Malaysia. She is a learner at heart and hopes to continue sharing the handful of knowledge she has gained with other people. On behalf of everyone, I request Dr. Kaarthiyainy Supramaniam to take over the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. Please call me Dr. Kaarthi. Yeah. First of all, I would like to thank you for inviting me to share what I know with your faculty members. I suppose they're all from the same university?
Yes, ma'am.
No, the participants are from all over India.
All right. So it's really a pleasure for me to meet all of you. And I'm really humbled that you have given me this opportunity to share, whatever that I'm going to be doing later. So it's a real pleasure to meet you. Right now here, it's 9 o'clock at night, quite near the bedtime. But, I'm going to keep you awake as well. Yeah. So I hope this will be a good evening for us. Yeah. So I hope that, this can be a bit interactive, and I'm not here to give you a lecture. I'm here to share what I know with you, because this is a professional development program, and you are also esteemed scholars in the field. So I'm just going to share what I know and what I've been doing in the area of social linguistics. Due to the very short time that I was given, the title that I have for you today is Social Linguistic Narratives in a Multicultural Society. So I'm from Malaysia. I was introduced earlier, particularly in a place called Shah Alam, Klang. It's in the state of Selangor. And I hope if you have been to Malaysia, probably you would have visited Kuala Lumpur. And Kuala Lumpur is just next to Shah Alam. Yeah. And it's a multicultural country. So this is a good opportunity for me to share some excerpts of the Malaysian lifestyle. Yeah. And we're going to see it through the lens of socio-linguistic narratives. Okay. So let me just move on to the next slide. That's a brief profile. I'm also in postgraduate education, and my area of expertise is academic research discourse, social linguistics, and also second language acquisition. So I have been doing this since 2012. Prior to that, my background is in undergraduate education, diploma students and all. So basically teaching them English for specific purpose and all. Yeah. But after 2012, I have been asked to teach social linguistics, second language acquisition, and my forte is actually academic research discourse. So in the past 12 years, I have gained some experience, and I've been doing some research work. Yeah. So that is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. Yeah, so I hope there's some good takeaways from what I have to share with you. Now, this past 3 days, I've also been listening to the speakers for this program. On the first day, we listened to Anwar, Associate Professor Dr. Anwar Sadat, and he talked about cultural representation. And there's a lot of theories and practical aspects that he shared with us. Yeah. And on the second day, we listened to Dr. Thomas John, and he talked about culturally responsive teaching. Yeah. And he touched on multilingualism and translanguaging. Yeah, very interesting aspects of social linguistics. And yesterday, Dr. Elizabeth touched on linguistics and intercultural communication. Now, the takeaway from these 3 days are very interesting, and they overlap with what I'm going to talk to you about. Social linguistics cannot be divorced from everything else the other experts talked about. Yeah, it is a sister field to many areas of concern. We have linguistics, sociology, archaeology, and many areas. Yeah. So I would say these are sister fields. Yeah. And what we do in social linguistics sometimes overlap with other fields. Yeah. So some of the theories that the three speakers spoke about, and the kind of research work that is going in that area seem to be overlapping with social linguistics, and also the development in this context as well, in the field of social linguistics as well. Yeah. So let me just move on. So I'm not going to be talking about a lot of theories and theoretical aspects, because I think the other speakers have done a wonderful job in talking about this. So I'm just going to focus on the area of social linguistics. Yeah. And I'm not going to go into the theoretical aspects of social linguistics, because the field of social linguistics itself has turned towards a more practical approach. So if you look at a very important journal in the field of social linguistics, Language in Society, they have actually celebrated 50 years of publication. Yeah. So if you look at what they've said, all right, I particularly want to quote Barbara Johnston. She's the former editor of Language in Society before she retired. Yeah, and she says that basically in the field of social linguistics, there are three aspects or three ways of looking at it. And scholars have looked at social linguistics field in terms of language and languaging. I mean, it's just talking about the language itself for the sake of language, right? Another approach is constructing languages and speakers, bringing in the speakers. Yeah. And the third one is the multimodal semiosis. People who are in the field of applied linguistics or semiotics will understand multimodality. Yeah, multimodality is the different mediums, even simple words. And semiosis is the study of symbols in society. So basically, these are semiotics. So it seems that there is a strong, how do you say this? There is a strong approach towards adopting multimodal semiosis, because it's very practical. Yeah. So having said that, I would just like to just briefly look at an overview of social linguistics. So how do we understand social linguistics? Yeah. So there are two ways to look at this. One, you have society in the core, and you have language at the outer core. If you look at the second circle, how do you understand this? This means that language is at the macro level. Yeah. How do how do people use language? So in this understanding, language seems to be a tool or an instrument that they use. Now, if we flip that, if we flip the core, if we put language in the center, then we will have society in the outer layer. If we flip it that way, then we can understand that society is more at the macro level, and they decide, all right, or influence how language develops. Yeah. But this has been two traditional views of looking at social linguistics. We've always seen it as two domains, the social and the linguistics. Right? So I think it's important that we look at both as a single entity, as an organic entity that is growing, that is dynamic, moving, and it's quite difficult to take them apart. You know, for research purpose, for studies, yes, we can separate them and have a closer inspection of society and language. We can do that for research purpose, but in practice, in daily lives, I think we should treat society and language as one living organic. So I think that is the understanding that we have to have, instead of seeing social linguistics as two separate entities. Yeah. So why I'm saying this is because reason research seem to be looking at it that way. Instead of compartmentalizing and looking at them as separately, they now want to look at how each one affects the other, how they overlap, right? And how each one mold and influence the other and not take them apart. So one of the ways to look at this as a dynamic single unity is to look at the lens of interactional social linguistics. I think I don't need to explain the word interactional, it's self-explanatory. So this seemed to be an emerging field, emerging subfield within social linguistics. Yeah, and it's not very old. It's in the past 5 years or so. So it's rather young, right? This shows that the field of social linguistics, one exciting branch seemed to be the interactional social linguistics. And what does this really mean? It means that it's time to also look at the agentive role of material objects. I mean, in studies, in fields like anthropology or ethnography, all right, archaeology, right, scholars have looked at objects. But when it comes to social linguistics, this seems to be a new way of looking at things and understanding things. So I think this is an exciting moment in social linguistics because now the focus is on objects. All right. In previous studies, in previous understanding of social linguistics, a lot of emphasis has been on the language aspects or on society. But now scholars want to look at artifacts, the objects. And in previous studies, in the previous fields, objects have taken have taken a secondary role or has been less emphasized. But now in this new view of interactional social linguistics, it seems that there's a lot of emphasis on material objects and how people communicate through these objects. The objects are in the surrounding, in the context, and somehow the interactions happen through them. And on a bigger scale, society changes along those minuscule interactions. So this is a very interesting proposition from the scholars. Yeah. So what I'm going to do in today's study, in our sharing session, I'm going to give you an example of how this can be applied, right? And then you tell me whether it makes sense. Yeah. So allow me to move on. So when I was asked, by the organizer to give a talk, I was thinking, what aspect of a society can I put forth? India is such a big country. I've visited Tamil Nadu once or twice in the past, and everywhere I turn are artifacts. Such a big historical country, and Malaysia is so many times smaller, right? So multiculturalism is not alien to you. I think the Indian society is much more complex, right? Complex and peculiar in its own ways. Yeah. But I'm trying to capture the Malaysian lens, the Malaysian experience, and to help you understand what multiculturalism mean in this country. And I appeal to you to reflect and see whether what I say relates to you, all right, and see how the idea of multiculturalism is present in our societies. Okay, so one of the most difficult thing when I got down to think about it, is looking at the lens. From what perspective or what lens should I tell the story of this multiculturalism? Yeah. So when you talk about, I was thinking, if you talk about homogeneity and also heterogeneity, if it's a multicultural society, right? A heterogeneous society, doesn't homogeneity exist in that diversity? In the Malaysian case, you can still see there are issues or contexts of homogeneity in some institutions. Even in the institution that I work in, there is 99% of students from the same ethnic group. So I would say this is a very homogeneous group because they come from the same ethnic group. And the university has its own agenda, right? And we have lecturers who are from the non-ethnic group, the non-Malay group. We are there to teach. So that part, it's quite heterogeneous. But when it comes to the student population, it's more homogeneous. So this is an instance of where homogeneity can exist in a heterogeneous context. And the reverse can happen as well. All right. So how do you capture this essence of plurality? Right. And when we are looking at it from a research point of view, and I'm going to tell you the story from my perspective, from my vantage point. I'm the researcher. All right. A lot of people from the hard sciences are going to argue and say that's not scientific. Because if I tell the stories from my point of view, I'm going to carry in my experience, my reflection. So we have this concept of researcher biasness. Yeah. So how do you deal with researcher biasness if you're going to, translate this into a publication or a journal? Yeah. This is not something that is new because when it comes to sociology and anthropology, did say this concept of native point of view. When you go down to the site and you want to, when you want to tell the story of a society or a particular group of people, you have to allow the emic perspective, the perspectives from the ground level to come. Let the people themselves tell you the story. It'll be good if you can, if you share their culture, if you share their knowledge, and if you can give that native point of view, that's splendid. But that doesn't happen all the time, and we saw that in early sociology or social linguistics, researchers from the Western context, they used to go to exotic places to study people in exotic places, in exotic situations, right? So how did they capture that essence of that nativity, the localized context? Yeah. So that still remains a challenge for researchers, especially in the qualitative paradigm. Okay. So these were some of my concerns, when I was trying to think, how can I tell the story of my country, the plurality that happens here, the multicultural factors. Yeah. So I need to have a vantage point, to somewhere a point to begin with. Yeah. So those are some of the things that you can consider even before you start telling the story of a people, right, or a population or a society. Okay, so in social linguistics, especially in the current interactional social linguistics, there are a few aspects that you can look at. Yeah, one, you can ask yourself: is the subject or the phenomenon that you want to look at, is it available in an open space? Is it available to everyone? Right? Because if it is an open space, it is shared. We have this concept of shared space. But the opposing concept will be a contested space. And in the contested space, people are not going to like the differences. There's going to be a lot of animosity and unhappiness. People tolerate one another. There is, during the first sharing session by Dr. Anwar, he talked about the salad bowl, yeah, as compared to a melting pot. So that struck me at that point. If it is an open space that has got a shared space, then you can say that it's a melting pot. People are more open and more accepting of differences, of diversity. But on the other hand, if the boundaries are strong, if it is a closed entity, then there's going to be a lot of unhappiness if there are diversity and a lot of unhappiness. Yeah, so in that contested space. So whether it's a closed concept or an open concept, people, when they come together, people of different backgrounds, when they come together, I would say there is a negotiation that happens. Yeah. So in research, there is this idea of negotiation as well. People don't just come and face diversity and get antagonized. There is meaning making. There is negotiation. All right. Experience. So these are all the important aspects that we can tap in or tap on. Yeah. When I said just now experiences, the most important thing is the meaning making, because this meaning making happens in every individual. And the people react, all right, through their experience and through the meanings that they make. And they decide, okay, this is what I'm going to accept, or I'm not going to accept this. So it becomes a contested space. Yeah. So when I was looking for a topic to present to you, I was thinking, what is the open space in this multicultural community? What can I say is a shared space? And if it is a shared open space, does that mean there is very less or no contestation at all? Okay, so if people of multicultural background come to this open space, how do they negotiate that meaning? How do they react? What is it that they do? All right. But I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this talk, I'm focusing more on the artifacts, because now that seems to be a new concept, that artifacts are not just mere objects, but they embody this meaning making. All right. So my vantage point is looking at the artifacts. So that's why I wanted to go to the next aspect of tangible artifacts or intangible ones. And research tells that it's not just the exotic things or the special or unique things that matter. Sometimes it's the everyday things like food, signages, utensils, where you sit and eat in open space. That's important. There is a movie, right? Eat, Pray, and Love. So I think those three aspects are important in the human life. So it can be something as simple and mundane as food. So how do people treat food? So that's also one of those things that, I was thinking. Now, another one will be nomenclature. Nomenclature is a name that we give to an object. So when you talk about an artifact, it's important to look at how it is called or what it is called. Why do they call it that way? When we name a baby, we are so careful about naming, looking at the names, the numbers and all that. There are some cultures that look at calculations, the horoscope, before they decide on a name of a baby. All right. But in our everyday objects that we see around us, how do they get their names? Why do certain cultures use certain names? Yeah. And sometimes these names seem to be similar with other cultures. So is there a shared experience, a shared human experience where it is evident in the way that they call the subject, the use of the nomenclatures? Yeah. Um, Another thing that I was thinking about, and is also talked about in the research area, is context. How does the past influence the present? In very simple terms, how we behave and act today is because, it's attributed to our past experience. Yeah. So you cannot totally divorce the past from the present. Yeah, so researchers say this is something that you need to consider when you are looking at your data. Okay, when you're looking and trying to understand people, look at the past, and you will understand, why the behavior is such in the present. Yeah. So these were some of the things that were going on in my mind when I was trying to, uh, identify an aspect of the culture that I wanted to talk about. Yeah. So why narrative in the title that I chose? I thought narrative is a very important concept because everybody likes stories. From a child to an adult, we all love stories. And stories has always been there from day one of the human civilization. Yeah. So this is just a brief pointers on what narratives is. But what I'm going to put on my plate today is not a story as in, the typical sense. But my narrative is from the concept of interactional socio-linguistics. So it's more of a research perspective rather than a recollection of past experiences, but in a typical way. Yeah, in a basic understanding of narrative. When you look at past research, this is what they have talked about. So you see stories in the form of biography, autobiography, life history, and all these different genres. They appear in all forms. Okay. I would say that cinematography has been very successful in capturing stories. Yeah. If you have watched the new movie Kalki that's playing in the Malaysian theaters now, it's, we import a lot of movies from South India. Okay. So I just went to watch Kalki. And in that story, while the present is happening, there are glimpses of the past. And how people behave in that current situation is because of some past human experience, and that influences the present. So in a way, cinematographers have captured this concept very, in a wonderful way and wonderful, enjoyable way. Yeah. And novels. Okay, who would have thought that, the story of Ponniyin Selvan? I watched that so many times. Okay, I'm not Tamil literate. I cannot read or write Tamil. I think I can only write my name, but I can understand, yeah, the Tamil language. So I enjoyed the movie so much. And when I read back about the movie of Ponniyin Selvan, I learned that it is actually short stories in the newspaper, and someone has put it in a book, and it was brought to the screen. So wonderful ways of capturing the human experience, but I'm not going to dwell in that direction. Yeah, this is just to give you a glimpse of what I'll be doing and not doing. So why is this still important? Is it still relevant now? Okay, I still I think that it's still very relevant. Yeah, if you look at this quote, I just give you a minute to look at this. I like how it ends. Narrative is like life itself. And at any part of the human civilization, you'll see that narratives are there. And if you just look at the cloud that I have for you, those are some of the words that, that I could think of that carries this essence of narration. So, but what better way to talk about a multicultural society, than narratives? So this, to me, is one of the best ways to talk about issues of multiculturalism. Yeah, to talk about a society with history. Okay, so this, I suppose, can happen at so many levels. Human beings have been shifting through civilizations. We have diasporas. You look at the Indian diaspora; they're all over the world. Okay, the Chinese diaspora, right? So some have been good. Some migrations have been good. Some not so good. Yeah, and that, to me, is relevant to the next quotation that I have. And it seems that narratives have healing effects because it is related to self-realization. And it highlights the problems and sufferings which were not awake. I was asking myself, if these problems and sufferings were not awake, why not just let sleeping dogs lie? Why, disturb and try to highlight the problems and sufferings? And I realized, when you look at the psychological or the psyche of a society, if there are underlying problems or sufferings or issues, unless these are resolved or realized or accepted, then the pain may continue. And that's not a good thing for a society to experience. Yeah. And that's going to create more conflicts. So in a way, listening to the narratives, all right, it reflects on our experience and, inform us of what we are, right? So that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to move away from this theorization to some practical aspects. Yeah, I've got something to show you. I hope you can respond to this. Can someone tell me what you see? If this was my class, I will just point out to one of the names here and just randomly say, okay, just tell me what this is. Can someone just tell me what you see and what you make meaning of this?
It's the image of Thiruvalluvar.
Yes. And can you just tell me a bit more of this divine person? In some cultures, they see him as a divine person, but in some, they don't. Catherine, what do you know about this scholar?
Thiruvalluvar is the foremost poet of Tamil, and he has written Tirukkural, 1,330 couplets in it.
Right.
And his couplets do not endorse any religion or anything, but it is still applicable. Everything that he has written, all those views and perspectives are still applicable to our modern society as well.
Right. And, immediately when you saw this, you can understand that. And it's amazing that even though we are, miles apart, this image, you can understand, you can make meaning, and you can relate. You have studied about it, and it's in your culture. All right. I have this shared culture with you because of some relatives, some relatives of mine are Indians, Tamils from Tamil Nadu. So I have this experience, this shared experience of this. Okay. Just one more question, Catherine. Where do you think this picture is taken?
That is truly a question to think about. I don't know. It's been there since I was a child. This is what we have seen, and this has been on display. We don't
Yeah,
know
there's a
yet.
statue. If I'm not mistaken, there's a statue of Thiruvalluvar by the seaside, right?
Yes,
If I'm not
yes,
mistaken.
yes.
And,
Yes, it's
and
in
in that
Kanyakumari.
context, correct. So in that context, as an artifact, it has been there in the context. So it becomes as part of the society's psyche,
Yes.
subconsciousness. And at the individual level, you see it. And wherever you go, now I'm showing you this. It's a mural painting in a Tamil school in Malaysia. So I'll get back to that again. Yeah. So at the individual level, you can identify this because you have seen this context and you can relate to that. If I have put this, if instead of the white dress that he's using, instead of that, if I have put that in a different color, pink or yellow, you can still identify that this could be him because of his facial expressions or, the instruments that he's using and all. So even if I make some modifications to that, you can still, guess that this could be that person. Yeah. So another point that I'm making here is that why is this story or symbolism or artifact that is from Tamil Nadu displayed here in a Malaysian school? This is a public school. It's not a private school. Right. So now we have to understand, looking at these artifacts, now we have to look and understand the background of these schools. So now we're going backwards. You see? So now when we go backwards, what we're trying to do is understand the context. You see, we're trying to understand why this is here. So you see, in the Malaysian education system, we have the public sector. So we have primary education, secondary education. Now, our primary education is very interesting because we have the national schools. So now the population of the national schools, the primary schools, are mixed races. So you have the majority population, the Malays go there, all right? You have the Chinese, that Chinese are the second highest population. And next come the Indians, yeah, the Tamils especially. When you talk about, you see, nomenclature is very important. I mentioned nomenclature, right? When we identify them as Indian, the Indian people of Malaysia, that's a generic term. You can argue and say, no, when you say Indian, it's in India, it means, there are so many subgroups. So in Malaysia, when you use the nomenclature of Indian, people think that you come from a same single ethnographic ethno group. But that is not true because we have Tamils, we have Punjabis, we have Telugus, we have Malayalis. Yeah. So mainly we have Telugus, Tamils, and Malayalis, and a small minority group of Punjabis. Yeah. So they are all under the umbrella of Indians, Malaysian Indians. Yeah. So you see, this nomenclature is there because of the political and also the policies in place. So those are other factors that can influence a name, right? Now, this picture is very important because it gives you an example of how in the primary school, we have three variations. We have the national type school, we have the Chinese schools because it caters to the Chinese communities who want to, educate their children in their mother tongue. Again, when we use the name mother tongue, it's a bit misleading, because the Chinese mother tongue is made of so many different accents or languages, sub-languages, the Hokkien, Hakka, Mandarin. But because of the political situation, the policies here in the country, only one language is given priority in the education system, which is Mandarin. Yeah. So whether your background is Hakka, Hokkien, Hainan, or whatever it is, in the Malaysian system, you can go to a Chinese school where you will only learn one language, which is Mandarin. Yeah. So we have the national type school, we have the Mandarin school, and also the Tamil school. Yeah. So if you come from a family of Malayalis or Telugus, and you want to have an Indian education, you still have to go to the Tamil school where you will learn the Tamil language. So in the Tamil school, you have the Telugus, the Malayalis, or even some Malaysians, the other Malays some of them also join the Tamil school, depending on where they are. So these are the Chinese school and the Tamil schools are called the vernacular schools. Vernacular schools because Mandarin and Tamil are recognized as vernacular languages in Malaysia. Okay, you see the labels help us understand certain things, but deep down beyond those names, it's much more complex. It's much more layered. Yeah. So these are aspects of that heterogeneity that we can't see. But on the outer aspect, we know this is the Indian group or the Chinese group. So in a way, Malaysia is polarized in that sense. But now there are changes because some parts of society don't want to be categorized in, because at the end of the day, where is the label of being Malaysian come in? So we have that dilemma. If I come from an Indian heritage, am I a Malaysian Indian or am I an Indian? Here in the Malaysian context, when it comes to filling up forms and all, my label is Indian. All right. But when I go overseas, I'm recognized as a Malaysian Indian. So there are a lot of baggages in the names that we have. So when we talk about nationhood and citizenship, that's a different story. So coming back to this, all right. So when in the Tamil school, what I've noticed is that they try to hold on to this heritage, this past, their past. So, and one of the ways that they do this is through the use of artifacts like this, murals. Right? I have so many other pictures too, but I cannot show them to you. There are some schools that have got the statue of Goddess Saraswati. At the entrance of another school, there was a statue of Tiruvalluvar. But in this school, it's in the form of a mural. And what is interesting about this situation, you can say, we also have schools in Tamil Nadu with pictures of this scholar or saint. Yeah. But what is interesting here is that, if you can just look at the side of that, you have Misi. Where my pointer is, you can see the word Misi. This is the Malay language. All right. So something written there in Malay next to the Tamil quotes, the Tamil wordings. So you see, there are two aspects here. We have one in Tamil and the other one is in Malay. So these are two different aspects in one space, which is in the school space. So is this a shared space? We can look at this from the point of view of being shared and also from the point of view of being a conflicting. Can this be a conflict? This is a way that the Indian community have grown into the Malaysian culture or the Malaysian nationhood. They've adopted the use of Malay together with the use of artifacts and also Tamil scripts. So this is a shared space, you can say, instead of a contested one. When it becomes a contested space, when people from the outside, they do not understand how this works, and there are, they do not accept. One example that I can give you is one of the officers came, the officer is not a Tamil speaking, not from, does not have an understanding of the Tamil culture. He came to visit the school, and because the school people did not want to offend the officer, they quickly covered the statue of the Tiruvalluvar because that could have been misunderstood as being a deity or, so you see, these misunderstandings happen because people do not have the knowledge, or they're ignorant of what's happening in the context of another people. So then the shared space can become a contested space and create problems. So how do you overcome this? at this point, I think it's through education, through awareness. Yeah. So that's just an example. So let me move on. Yeah. So this is in a bigger space, in the context of school. Okay. But when I look at other research, they have looked at just one single family at the micro level within the domain of a home. All right. Kate Pall in 2004, she looked at how her grandfather from India brought along a wooden train. And this family treasures that wooden train. So they've kept it in a cabinet, a glass cabinet. And whenever people look at the wooden train, they become nostalgic and they start talking about, their lives back in India and all that. So this is one way of looking at artifacts and telling the stories of how, that family came to be in that new space. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is that this investigation can even be done at the family level, at the micro level of a society. Yeah. So, yeah, don't worry about the big excerpt there. You'll be getting these slides. You can have a look at it later. Yeah. So, I wanted to just tell you that you can do this research even at the micro level and also at the macro level. Yeah. So in Kate Pall's research, the grandfather's wooden train embodied certain narration, certain meaning for the family. And whomever came to visit the family also heard that story. Yeah. So there was a lot of reflections. You see, the family valued the wooden train. So there is a valuation of the object. Yeah. In the past, objects were secondary to society and language. But now in this instance, we can see that the objective is in the first place. And then comes the people, the society, and the language. Language is not even important in the narrative. The center is actually, the spotlight is actually on the wooden train. Yeah. So in this case, what has happened to the object? There's a lot of values being, a lot of value being placed on the object. Yeah. So that's why the third bullet is interesting. It's treating physical nature as agentive and animated with its own complexity and self-regulating capacity. And that idea has given birth to this notion of embodied sociolinguistics. And you can see it's rather new, 2016. Yeah. So that got me thinking, how do I deal with this embodied social linguistics? How do I, show this embodiment? What is in this embodiment? How do I deal with these everyday objects? Yeah, in a multicultural context, like the one I showed you just now, the Thiruvalluvar. What is embodied in that artifact, the mural artifact? So there's history, there's reflection. Yeah. And just now Catherine also was able to say something. So there is meaning making. Yeah. So is that all about this phenomenon of embodied sociolinguistics? Okay. So with that question, I'm just going to move on to the next slide. I think I've touched this already, the micro level and the macro level. Yeah, so this can be done at the micro level, like the one in Pulse Home. Another example was carried out by Kanagaraja and Minakova, and they looked at the office door. Who would have thought that an office door can be the subject of a research? So that has happened at the micro level, right? So what about the macro level? How do we do this? Yeah. So I decided that I have to talk to you about the phenomenon of kopitiam. Have you heard of this word kopitiam? Sweta, maybe? Or Ratna, I see so many wonderful names there.
No, we
No,
haven't.
ma'am.
We
No,
haven't
no.
come across this word.
Okay, so I thought, and I asked myself, how unique is this kopitiam? And I was wondering whether people from other countries would have heard of this kopitiam, or experienced a kopitiam. There are a lot of side cafes in many countries and they serve different food. But, this is not even close to that. And you know what? This kopitiam restaurant that I visit, I go there on a weekly basis. But I've never stopped to observe or think until I was asked to come and, talk about this social linguistics. And that gave me a new pair of eyes, new pair of lens to look at the kopitiam that I've been visiting, almost on a weekly basis. Suddenly that kopitiam was full of artifacts, and I thought, what better topic to choose on than to talk about food. And, food is really a shared space. People come together to dine, to eat, to share food. No matter what background you are, if you put all those aside, you can still share food. So food has always been an important aspect of the human psyche, we can say. All right. So I thought, okay, this is the best thing, to talk about. So if you have not heard about a kopitiam, well, this is the story of kopitiam. And from this, I hope you will see how multiculturalism works out. All right. So basically, a kopitiam is a coffee house, right? And you can say that it's an informal restaurant. And in most kopitiam, you will see that they will serve Malay food or Chinese food. It's a mixture of both, right? So where do these people, who have started the kopitiams today, where do they come from? They are generally the Chinese. The majority kopitiams are started by the Chinese people here. And if you look at their ancestry, they are from the island of Hainan or Fujian. So if you come down to Vietnam, Cambodia, you can see the Gulf of Thailand. So that's where Malaysia is. So during ancient times, all right, during the Silk Road era, I'm talking about the Chola times, during the Silk Road, you can see there were different waves of migration, even from pre-Chola period. Okay, the Chola has become a household name because of the movie Ponniyin Selvan. And, but we know history. Even prior to the advent of the Chola Empire, we have had previous empires. So we had the Indian wave of migration, even during those few thousand years before. And this one is more recent. This is from the Chinese counterpart, and they are from islands of Hainan and Fujian. And they have settled in the peninsula and also parts of Borneo. Borneo is still part of Malaysia. Okay, so what has happened during World War II is that they went out of job. Poverty was high because the mining sites were closed down. The Chinese majority came here to work in the mining areas. But during World War II, it was all shut down. All right. And the Japanese hated the Chinese. So a lot of them, were isolated in a special place called Kampong Baru. You see the name, Kampong Baru means new village. And this is especially named a new village because people were taken away from their homes and they had to be placed in that special place during World War II. Okay, so a lot of Chinese people also hid in the jungles to fight off the Japanese. Okay, so after World War II, there was a lot of displacement, a lot of poverty. Yeah, so some people turned towards hospitality and started their own coffee shops. So when you say coffee shops, don't think of the new cafes that you have. It's not that. This is just small spaces with one or two round tables and stools. They're almost always stools, and they served good coffee. So the Chinese hospitality at that time was the idea was to come together to talk, because it was after war. Some people didn't have families. So this was a meeting point for those people to come and share their grievances, to meet up with friends, to just carry on in life. That's all. So it started that way. So while they are there having the food, they are also served with very minimal, simple food. So I'm going to come to that shortly, right? I have to keep to my time as well. So I have about, 35 minutes. Yeah. So now I've put on the lens of a researcher. Okay. And I told myself this is going to be a qualitative approach, because I can't tell this using numbers. This has to be a case study. Yeah. And it has to be an ethnographic grounded approach, probably, because I don't know much about the theory. The theory is 5 years old. Yeah. It does tell me something about artifacts and objects, but now I need to go down to the ground level to look at the site of Kopitiam, to understand, to come back and explain about the theory. Yeah. So I put on my researcher's lens. So I'm going to look at the Kopitiam. Yeah. Right. So Kopitiam actually comes from two compound words. It's a compound word. It comes from two words. Kopi in Malay and tiam. It means shop in Hokkien. So you see, it's a compound word from two different languages, and it's a simple place to socialize. Yeah. And now in more recent years, I see that some Malays have also started the Kopitiam. Of course, Malays are Muslims in this country, and they will only serve halal food. Yeah. So when you talk about the Malay Kopitiam, you can almost say that they serve halal food, and of course it caters to everyone as well. Again, you see, it could have been started by the Chinese, or it could have been started by the Malays, but this is an open space. Whenever you talk about Kopitiam, anyone can go and have a cup of coffee and have their food. But because if it's a Chinese Kopitiam, there may be halal issues. But if you go to a Malay Kopitiam, that's taken care of. Yeah. So there are some layers there. All right. But let's look at these kopitiams that are run as family businesses. You see, the kopitiam started by the Malays because of, modern times. They want to have this. We have this culture cafe. Cafe culture is the other way around. Yeah. So we have this emerging cafe culture. And what people have done is they've tried to modernize the kopitiams, and, and it's something that youths like. They like to go to kopitiam to hang out with their friends, to have a cup of coffee. Yeah. So I am talking about the more traditional ones. In my earlier slide, you saw that, after the war, some families have started these businesses. All right. So what has happened now, or it's happening now, is that the new generations have taken over their businesses, and it's become a franchise. But some that are just one-off, but the franchise is there, and they're being very successful. Yeah. But if you look at their recipes, it's always being, traditional recipes. So I've got 4 case studies here. So 2 in each. So I'm going to show you some excerpts from the traditional kopitiams and also the 2 modern ones. My favorite is Kian Kiat. All right. So you will see why. Okay. For you, if you're not aware of the concept of kopitiam, you will think that these are just drinks in ceramic cups. But actually, if you go to any authentic kopitiam, your drink will be served in these ceramic glasses, ceramic cups. The one on my left is tea, because the Chinese make good tea. Have you heard of the mama restaurants here? Mama restaurants here are also a different genre, or a different type of restaurant, because when you say mama restaurant, it is always by the Indian Muslims who have come from India, and they have started their businesses, and they have their special dish called the nasi kandar, and usually it's rice with multiple types of curries put together. So that's a different story, and that's for a different seminar. Okay, but looking at the kopitiam, the tea that this served here, it's a bit different than the one served in the mama restaurant. Whenever you say mama tea, it's always the pulled tea with the bubbles. But here, it is never pulled. It is always served in this way, and you have to stir it yourself. So these are the generic food or generic, the generic food that you see, generic drinks that you see in kopitiam. All right. There are some variations now. The one on the right is a slight variation, but it's also served in a ceramic cup. Yeah. So you see, this is the idea of nomenclature. When you say kopitiam coffee, you must understand that coffee is the main thing, and it must be served in this way. Yeah. And when we talk about this drink, there are so many variations. This is the L variety. When you talk about language varieties, we have the high varieties and the low varieties. High varieties are more formally written. There's a proper pronunciation. There's proper grammar, and it's usually highly perceived. All right, the status is high. But when it comes to the low variety, it's the opposite. It's an everyday conversation. People understand this, yeah. And you cannot go to a hotel speaking like how you do in a kopitiam. In a kopitiam, you don't use the H variety of language. There is no proper way of saying, right? And this drink has taken on several variations. And because of this artifact that has changed in different ways, there are different forms. Therefore, the language that is used goes according to that. So when you say kopi, in kopitiam, it is always the condensed milk and the evaporated milk and the coffee. And the coffee beans are brewed, hand roasted and brewed. Yeah. So that's always the way that it is made. And when you say, okay, I want kopi cham, when you say cham, it means a mix of coffee and tea. Where in the world do you get a mix of coffee and tea? I mean, that's a no-no. You don't mix coffee and tea. But in the kopitiam, you'll find this. And it's called kopi cham. You don't have to explain that you want to mix your coffee and tea. When you say the word cham, they understand you. When you say cow, it means really thick. All right. Any kopitiam or any Chinese stalls that you go to and you say this word cow, it's understood that you want your drink thick. The next one that is highly used is kopi o. Kopi o means empty. O means empty, zero. So it means it's black, no milk. And sometimes, you can tell them that you don't want sugar, but usually kopi o means without milk. Yeah. And a very, all these words are very commonly used. Another one that you must know when you go to a kopitiam is tapao. And tapao is derived from the Cantonese dabao. It means simply to pack. But anyone who is not familiar with this context will think that pao refers to the Chinese buns, but these are not the buns. Okay, so it's almost exclusive to this this interaction that happens, around this drink, but in this sense, artifact or object. Right. So I hope you can see that, the object is an important, it's central to this. It's not the people so much, or it's not the language, but when you put a cup, when you want to order something, you put that cup there. So you see the object takes the center place. So we give a lot of focus on, what we order. So the artifact is important in this interaction. Yeah. So, and this is all the L variety, okay? And when you talk about the L variety, sometimes this is looked down, but in this case, it's not. It's totally acceptable. And I can tell you, Malaysians, when we go to Kopitiam, we can order those food in the L variety. And when we are not there, when we are at when we are at other restaurants or in some other places, we can shift to the H variety. So I think people are very comfortable. It's part of the life. So when you go into this kopitiam and when you say, now you put those words together, kopi o, tapau satu, it means I want one pack, please pack it. One pack of kopi o. When you say berapa, it means how much. Just that one word. Kasih satu. Now, interesting about satu means one. Kasih is a colloquial way of saying give. But if you take the Malay dictionary, it's not that. You'll never find this word. Yeah. So kasih is a colloquial way of saying give. Yeah, kasih satu. Right? The same as tak mau. Tak mau means no, don't want. It's not a complete. All these are not complete sentences. Just one or two short phrases. You see, L varieties need not have a proper grammar. These are all, I would say, manifestations of creolization of the language during the early contact between the Malay communities and the Chinese communities. The early contact, of course, it's pidgin, but over the generations, it's been creolized. So there are some elements of the of both cultures here. And one sensitive one will be this ba. So when you go to a Chinese restaurant or kopitiam where they serve pork, you have to tell them ba tak mau. See, tak mau is don't want. So you must tell them tak mau ba. Now, it's not right to say, or maybe it's not even acceptable to use the word babi because it's quite sensitive. We have a lot of Muslim people here. So babi is actually a very sensitive word. All right. So sensitive word for the Muslims, but the other communities know this, and it's come to a point where we don't even use it among the non-Muslims. So what we do, there's a convenient way of saying this. So we end up saying ba. Ba is actually a short form for the full word, the two syllables. Okay. And then you have other words like tamba, tauke. Tauke is always referring to a male vendor, the male boss. You never say this to a younger person. Okay. And when you say tauke, it's understood that that person is the boss. Yeah. And then you have ada, tak ada, sudah habis. Yeah. So these are some of the phrases that are commonly used in the interactions in the kopitiam. Yeah. So I hope that you would have. I've taught you some colloquial Malay words. Yeah. So if you come down to Malaysia, then you can easily order your food. Okay, let me move on to the food. Just now we saw the drinks. Now let's come to the food. So when you go to kopitiam, there are three things that most kopitiams will serve. One is the coffee or tea, and the other one is the toasted bread. And this toasted bread is actually called roti bakar. Roti bakar, it's pretty mundane or simple food, cheap. And when you say roti bakar, it means it's always toasted. Roti, I'm sure you understand, because even in the Indian culture, you have the word roti. But roti for you could mean chapati. But in this culture, roti means bread. Yeah. And when you go to kopitiam, roti bakar means literally it's burned because it used to be toasted over the fire pit in those days. But of course, now they use the toaster. Now they use the modern toasters. They no longer have those open fire or the open pit. But you see, the name has remained. Yeah. And most, I would say 100%, this bread will be accompanied by these two friends. You've got the thick butter and also one dish called the Nyonya Kaya. The Kaya, it's like a jam. All right. And this is also very peculiar to this society. I'm not sure if you'll find this anywhere else in the world. Okay. This Nyonya Kaya, it's very peculiar to this context. So let me talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, I think the slide will come a bit later, right? This is so let me just move on. This is more of a modern kopitiam. Okay. This is case one. This is an example of a modern kopitiam. It's franchised. Yeah. And if you look at their website, they have this, but I just want to highlight these two words because, you know, this captures the essence of the proprietors, the owners. They want to be unpretentious. And there is one Malay word that they use, muhiba. And muhiba means peaceful coexistence. Muhiba is an Arabic word. So you see the Arabic influence as well. Yeah. And another modern kopitiam is this one. It's called Old Town White Coffee. Okay. And on their website, it says our story. So again, you have the narration here. So it seems like whenever you talk about these modern kopitiams that have franchised and, you know, they're booming everywhere, in every state you have them, it seems like they want to display to the world, the open space, the heritage that they have. You know, like the first one, it's over 5 generations. They've been doing that for 5 generations. Yeah. This one also 3 generations, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So this is hereditary businesses, and they want to show that, they want to tell that story, that narration. So I'm not surprised that on the website, they start with our story. Yeah. And in the same website, they say, today Old Town is exported to 21 countries, sharing, again, the word sharing, this Malaysian cultural heritage. So you see in the narration, they share, they portray, they bring in the cultural heritage. So all these indicates that open and shared space, that other people are invited to come in. But of course, that's good for business as well. Yeah. And again, when you look at it from the language point of view, you have the Malay language and English language, because this English is an international language. Yeah. So one thing that you can see is that they have not introduced the Chinese words or the Chinese characters in their promotions. They have used the Malay language and English language, because the Malay language, it appeals to everyone, yeah, in Malaysia. And at the international level, you also have the English. But conveniently, the Chinese or the Chinese characters have not been displayed. Although the owners are Chinese, and this is a Chinese tradition of expanding the business. So why? I have no answer for that. I'm yet to think about it. Yeah. So let me come back to the traditional kopitiams. Now, this first case, second case are the new modern franchise kopitiams, right? And let's compare that with these old ones. Yeah. So here, even though the label is restaurant, in Malay we have that word as well, but this is not your typical restaurant. This is actually a kopitiam. Yeah. And it's a stall concept. So another dish that they serve in most kopitiam is the famous nasi lemak, right? So I'm sure you would have, I don't know if you have heard of nasi lemak, but it's very popular. And excuse me. I hope I've not made all of you hungry. I've just had my dinner. Yeah. So let me talk a bit of nasi lemak. This is, whenever you talk whenever you say the word nasi lemak to any Malaysian, definitely they will know what a nasi lemak is and what it constitutes. So let's understand this important dish, because it's just part of this multicultural context. Okay, it's just part of in an organic way, because all ethnic groups have their versions of the nasi lemak. This is an example of how an object can become dynamic. It's not static, and it's shared, and it's taken different versions or forms. So nasi lemak basically means rice that is cooked in coconut milk, and that's the basic thing. So whenever you have a nasi lemak, it must be accompanied by all these condiments. You must have the egg, the cucumbers sliced, peanuts, the anchovies, and something called the sambal. But I heard that even in Tamil Nadu, you do have this dish called sambal, but I'm not sure whether they are the same. But this sambal that we have is made from chili paste, right? So it's sauteed. So when you say this word nasi lemak, you go and buy this at the kopitiam or anywhere, at the stall or at a restaurant or a hotel, you can expect to see these condiments. Maybe the presentations would be different, right? So what is peculiar in this kopitiam is that they sell this packed in this way. So this is a very typical way of packing the nasi lemak. It's very conish. And in the inside, you have on the inside of this, when you open, this is from another stall. You have the layers of the banana leaf, yeah. And nasi lemak, it's understood in the label. You see, you have nasi lemak kampung. This is the name of that the vendor. And he uses this nasi lemak kampung. Again, when we look at nomenclature, the way how things are named, kampung refers to village. And, this is humble food, very simple, cheap, and, it's simple layman's food. It's not very costly. So the name or the labeling captures that, the spirit of the nasi lemak. And if that's not too funny, if I say the spirit of the nasi lemak. Yeah. So this is served in the kopitiam in this way, right? So I mentioned just now about the nyonya, right? The kaya, the jam, the jam that is used in the bread together with the butter or the margarine, right? So now, nyonya kaya, if you look at the name, nyonya refers to a female, and it is usually from the Peranakan Chinese. Peranakan here, I'm going to come to that in a short while. Yeah. Kaya means rich. I don't know, literally financially rich, or because this dish is cooked in coconut milk, lots of eggs, until it reaches a consistency of a jam. So that's why it's called kaya, nyonya kaya. And this is a heritage dish from the Peranakan Chinese. Okay, so what is a heritage dish doing in a kopitiam? All right, so that's my question. And not only this, a lot of other traditional heritage dishes are in the kopitiam. All right, because I mentioned just now that kopitiam is mainly started by the Chinese. All right, and here we have another subgroup called the Peranakan Chinese, who have also brought in their heritage food into this space. And that is received very well. People like me, an outsider of that culture, we go in and, enjoy this. Yeah. And this is called simply a kueh. A kueh is a generic term for all these savories. Some are sweet, some are savories. Just like how you have your laddus and, the palkovas and all. But in here, in this situation, these are all savories. And, these are the Nyonya traditional kueh. And when you say the word kueh, it means a savory dish like this. But you have so many variations. Yeah. And each has its own name. Yeah. So why is this a heritage dish? And who are these people who do this? Yeah. So that brings us back to the past. And how did this, you will never find Peranakan in any other country unless they've migrated. Yeah. So Peranakan is especially used to refer to the early Chinese who have settled here and have intermarried with the local Malays. So that generation is called the Peranakan Cina. But we also have the Peranakan Arab, the Arabs and the Dutch. And this is a surprise for you, we also have Peranakan Indian, Peranakan Indians. And these are all the minorities. And social linguistics will tell you, usually the minorities will not have a big voice. It's always, the narration is usually the majorities, right? So these communities have come to speak the language called the Bazar Malay, right, or Tiongha, and we call them as the Baba Malay. It's a form of a Creole. Yeah, we have these people settled in Singapore because Singapore has a shared history with Malaysia. Yeah, before their independence, so we do have a small minority Peranakan in Singapore, but they have lost the language. The Creole Malay is lost. Yeah, so there are no speakers. I can say that there are no speakers of Baba Malay in Singapore. Yeah. So if you look at this picture here, they have actually adopted the Malay costume. Over the centuries, they've, they speak Creole Malay, but these days everybody speaks English and the national language. So very few people actually speak Baba Malay, but they have retained the clothing, the clothes that they wear. Yeah, so the Malays also wear this. This is also a traditional Malay costume, and the Chinese also use that, the Peranakan Chinese. And you know what? We also have the Chittis. These are the Peranakan Indians, the minority I mentioned just now. Now, these people were from the Coromandel coast of southern India, and they speak Tamil. All right. Now, the Chitti language has survived because it is still used in the temples. So this is a temple that they have, a Ganesha temple in Malacca, in that small community. But somehow the attire, the clothings have changed. They have adopted the Malay clothings. But the language is retained. The food is Malay food. But when they speak Tamil, and of course they are Hindus. They have a temple there. Yeah. So this is an example of how the heritage language has survived. Yeah. So that one is a bit of a diversion. Yeah. All right. So coming back to the artifacts from the kopitiam. All right. So there are evidences of bilingualism. If you look at all these foods here, in this small stall, you can see two codes used, English and Hokkien characteristics. The Mandarin characteristics are there. Okay. So this is an example of presence of bilingualism. Okay. And you have diglossia, right? Bilingualism, diglossia, the use of Malay and English. Not just two languages, but if you look at this sign on pricing and all, there are three languages used and also two characters. You see the alphabets as well as the Mandarin characters. So this is very common in the kopitiam. So people like me, I cannot read Mandarin. I can only read the Malay language and English. This functions very well, right? So I will know how to read this. But these kopitiams have also retained their own characters, the heritage characters, right? Like the arrows that you see here, these are from two different kopitiams. What you can see here at the entrance is something written in Chinese characters, Mandarin characters, always red, no other colors, it's always red. And when I asked one of the staff there, and she says that this was gifted to the owner, and it means that it needs something like prosperity. Let there be prosperity in the business. So, for the Chinese community, finance and businesses are very important part of their society. So this is carried into this space, this shared space. So not just that, even in the second kopitiam, I could see that. So what else do you see in a shared space? I said just now that the majority of the food that you see here are from the Chinese, but here there is a halal logo. You know what this means to us? It means that if you are a Muslim, you don't have to worry about consuming this food because it has been prepared according to, religious prescriptions. So there are indications to say these are the boundaries, and it's okay. All right. So this carries the halal logo. So it's not just language, but also semiosis, the use of signs. I'm going to lose my voice in a short while. Just to give you a few more examples, how the past is carried to the present, the use of the word heritage. Yeah. And this is something that I wanted to share with you. In the shared space, this is a Chinese kopitiam, Chinese owner, but there are pictures of the Hindu gods, Ganesha and Saraswati, which you will find in the Indian domains, in their homes, in the Indian restaurants. But here, this is a Chinese space, and the sharedness is evident here when they have put up those pictures. So somehow this is overspilled or shared again, the shared space, because in that area there are a lot of Indian communities, and somehow the Chinese vendor has decided to adopt that. Today I visited one office. All right. This one is a college. My nephew is going into a college, so we went to find out, and it's run by a Chinese tycoon. And it's an automobile college. But at the entrance, I saw a big statue of Ganesha. So in multicultural context, it's not unusual to see this shared artifacts or shared objects. No? So it's not just in the objects, but also people. When you talk about society, here is a person, an elderly person, who grew up among the Indian community, in the Indian estate, who went to a Tamil school, brought up in the Indian culture, and in the shared space, he is there at the kopitiam, enjoying a bowl of Chinese noodles, very comfortable in using chopsticks. And he interacts with the Chinese staff using those phrases that you saw just now. So people participate in that shared space. So I'm coming almost to the end of my presentation. Just a few more slides. Yeah. I just want to bring your attention to the blue box here. The multilingual learners draw from diverse semiotic resources and creatively negotiate meaning for learning at the personal level. You see, in a multicultural society, with multicultural learners, they have so many resources and they use them creatively to negotiate understanding. Yeah. But when they come to the university, we have standardized exams and we have standardized tests, or even an entrance exam, a standardized one. And we want to see certain standardized things. Okay. And in a high-stake exam, that's also very standardized. When we have these standard practices, we use that one-size-fit-all. So where is the space to allow that creative negotiation to come in? So at the university, how do we create these opportunities for the learners to share the narratives that they bring. They are used to all these different signages, different understanding, the negotiation. They know, they make meaning by looking at all these different diverse resources. But when they come to our classes or our institutions, do our policies support that diversity? So that is the question that I think we have to reflect. And the way forward is to create that space for these learners in some ways, yeah, so that it's more meaningful. And I think, we can make better societies in that way. Yeah. So, and how can you do this further? Probably, identify those domains. In the example that I showed you, these are the cases of where people eat and dine. That's a shared space. Yeah. So what are the hotspots, that can create problems or issues? You can also deal with them in the classroom. Yeah. We don't have to force fit and say it has to be a melting pot. I mean, it's okay to have that vegetable or salad bowls. That's fine, because there is coexistence. Yeah, there is muhiba. We saw that word muhiba. Yeah, but at the same time, I think we need to allow, other narratives to come in as well. For example, the heritage stories of heirlooms, traditional games, rituals, they're all there in the background. And if the young generation are not given the space to talk about this, to bring this into the current conversations, that's going to be lost. Yeah. And what is humanity, if you don't have your roots? Yeah. So these are the sources that I have used. And the final one is a big thank you for your patience for listening to my talk today. I hope I've made sense. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much. Now I'm ready to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kaarthi, for a splendid presentation on sociolinguistic narratives in multicultural society. You have really showcased how artifacts become central to a multicultural setting, and it was really wonderful looking at how Malay culture and Indian culture, Chinese culture, everything come together to make a new, different culture altogether. So now, thank you so much. If the participants have any queries, you can post it in the chat box. We'll just take a couple of questions as it's late right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Reflections are welcome as well.
Yes, definitely.
I just would like to reflect on your talk, Dr. Kaarthi.
Yes, sure, Doctor. Go
It
ahead.
was quite an intriguing talk, especially your talk on multimodal semiotics and grounded theory was very, very interesting. I have certain clarifications in this regard. When you spoke about multimodal semiotics, where there are different modes of communication these days, which are visual, auditory, and spatial. Do you think multimodal semiotics is becoming far more pertinent in the age of truncated digital communication? Because we deal with communications such as emojis, and communication is becoming far more truncated. So, what is the scope that you see for multimodal semiotics, and how has the scope changed compared to the artifacts and the traditional aspects that you were talking about?
Well, in my opinion, I think the changes are happening so quickly. They are proliferating. I'm just afraid that our theories are not catching up. We have a very limited understanding or very traditional understanding of what multimodalities are. They're changing so fast, so rapidly, in a very organic way, that's the truth. We don't, the theories that we have are not enough to describe them. So the theories have to expand. We have to go, further to catch up. And the understanding of semiosis is also changing so rapidly in the past, when we talk about multimodality or semiosis, we always hear from this Western context. But now there is a decontextualizing of the Western narratives. People want to hear other narratives. Even the Westerners are giving us other, versions. The theorizing, that's why there are emerging sub-theories in social linguistics, like the one that I shared today on the interactional social linguistics. And then the concept of embodiment. When you talk about embodiment, in the past, objects were secondary to language and society. We always saw in those two circles. But now, suddenly, the objects have values. And people are beginning to talk about those values. Okay, but that's talking about the past and the present. What's missing is the future. And technology is moving so rapidly, being truncated. But I don't see the theories, to deal with those changes.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that? I don't know. I've
Yeah,
not seen.
fascinating, Karthi, fascinating. Just wanted to just add one small note to what you said
Go
about
ahead.
embodied cognition. It's because, listening to your talk on embodied cognition, where we felt that language is purely a cognitive venture. But now it's when we talk about the field of socio-linguistics, your talk, especially Kaarthiyainy, and the examples that you showed, cut across what do we call as the language as a mere cognitive activity. It's not only cognition, but socio-linguistics. Having said that, the final comment I wish to make regarding your talk is learners have become far more they don't socialize nowadays. They're all totally into digital space. So isn't social linguistics itself a paradox because learners don't socialize these days?
True. And we
Yeah,
talk about
thank you.
digital interactions and all that. How do our existing theories capture that space? I talk so much about the shared space and all, but how, now it's all digitalized. How do you theorize that digital space as shared space? It's very individual, but at the same time, it's shared. So you see, it's confusing. It's vague. So I think we need more theorizing to happen. The theories have to be expanded very quickly.
Exactly, Kati. I was speculating the same thing during the course of your talk. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am. In the same line, there is a question posted here in the chat box. In the context of higher education, institutions, and academic examination patterns, is it feasible to accommodate the diverse linguistic backgrounds of learners in a multicultural society? If so, how do we implement such testing patterns in a uniform scale? Question is posed by Dr. Sugadev.
I have been wondering the same question, for a very long time. And again, my own reflection is, are universities willing to break free of standardized testing and evaluation? So it's a matter of willpower on the side of the administrators and also society. Society wants the standardized tests. The high-stake examinations must be in place. Malaysia has experimented by removing, and people started making noise because they want to see those examinations there. If not, how are they going to gauge their students' performance, their children's performance? So even if the institutions want to do away with the high stakes exams and standardization, society is not giving in. We're so used to that. But I think an alternative that I can imagine is, I think we need to give this opportunities for that creative thinking to come in, right? That negotiation. So we have to look at how we assess our students. Can we look at portfolios? Can we look at case studies? Can we look at problem solving and not so much on the assessment for the sake of assessment?
Thank you, ma'am.
So how do we implement? Implementation is another big question mark. Can we do away? Can we implement those kind of open testing methods? I think you need another seminar for that, just to talk about assessments.
Assessments and examinations. Yes, definitely. Any more questions?
But I think you can talk about this in your classroom and not worry about the assessments. Give them the space, let them bring in that, that voice, the narrative voice. Okay, let them talk. If you see people of different cultures, reach out to them, ask them questions. Can you share something about, your food? Share something about, what does this mean? If you see something that they bring or carry with them, objects, artifacts, can you share with us why you're this? I think once we start asking questions and we are open to listening to responses, I know that can happen. If we can start in the classroom, the students bring that back to the homes and they become more tolerant in the, because they know there are differences, So I
Thank you,
think
Dr.
that I hope that it will
Yes,
build bridges in
that
that
is
way.
a wonderful idea. Yes, definitely. And it will make them feel included within the community.
Yeah, inclusive education. Yeah, we talk about it.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Any more questions? If not, then I think we can wind up. Thank you, Dr. Kaarthi. Thank you once again
Thank you
for
so much.
sharing your thoughts with us. It was wonderful listening to you about your ideologies and your thoughts and other things. It was really great. Thank you
Thank you
also,
so
dear
much.
participants.
I enjoyed myself. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear participants, please join us tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. for the session on Literary Traditions and Cultural Perspectives by Ms. N. Sundari Subhasini, lecturer, program leader of Language and Communication, Faculty of Education and Humanities, UniTAR, Malaysia. Thank you, everyone. Thanks a lot.